it's funny because it's all in superheroes as well. Like, to me, I was like, why do I like spies? One of the reasons was I grew up reading superhero comics, and then superhero comics, you have a secret identity, right? So that's like the main thing you're trying to hide while you do your mission. You know, it's like, oh, spies are just like the real world version of that, where you have your other self, you know, and you're trying to do something good, you know, or do whatever your mission is, good or bad.
You just heard from this week's guest. I'm Kris Simon, and I'm joined by my partners in crime, Davd Hyde and Christian Gossett. Welcome to the Superfan Podcast, where the people who make the comics you love talk about the things they love that aren't comics.
Matt Kindt is a Harvey Award-winning and New York Times bestselling writer and artist of comics and graphic novels. His work includes Mind Management, BRZRKR with Keanu Reeves, Bang, ENIAC, Revolver, 3 Story, Super Spy, 2 Sisters, and Pistol Whip. He's been nominated for 4 Eisner Awards and 3 Harvey Awards, and won once. His work has been published in French, Spanish, Italian, and German. The author lives in St. Louis, Missouri, with his wife and Department H collaborator, the colorist and artist Charlie Kindt. All right, Matt. Do you remember how you first discovered John le Carré's writing?
Yeah, I do. It's so funny. I was in high school, and I think it was at a Walden Books or B. Dalton, one of the chain bookstores at the mall. Like that. That's where we would go. That was like our closest bookstore, and I remember finding "Spy Who Came In From the Cold" it was the hardcover. They put the hardcovers on sale or whatever when the paperbacks were out, and I was like, oh my god, this looks cool. And I had been reading the James Bond. I'd read all the Ian Flemings, you know. I'm like, oh, I'm done with those. I need something else. And so I picked this book up, and it was this hardcover. I remember the cover of the dust jacket, and I don't have it. What's funny is that, well, we'll get to that, but I'd heard of him, and I'd heard of the books, and I was like, these are serious spy books, you know, and I was in high school. But coming off the Ian Fleming books, I read like the first little bit, and I was like, this seems like, I don't know, this isn't for me. So my first exposure to it was, I was just too young for it. You know, I wasn't ready for it, but I held on to that book forever, like for so long. And then, it got lost and it moved somewhere, at some point, but I probably had that book for at least 20 years to read on my to-read shelf. And then finally, I don't know what got me back into it. I think I did get a little bit older, and I was like, still have this weird nostalgia for James Bond and everything, but I'm also like grown up. So I finally went back to it, and I was like, oh, these are real novels. These are like legitimate literature, you know. And I think I had sort of back into it by reading some Graham Greene. Our Man in Cuba, I think, was the first one of his I read, and I was like, oh, this is great. So I just blew through a bunch of Graham Greene, and then I realized somehow online, I was like, oh, they knew each other, or they liked each other's work. I was like, oh, I need to go back and try it. And so I just blew through all of John le Carré's stuff after that.
Do you remember how far you got through the book the first time you tried to read it?
I probably one chapter. I was like, it just is. It's interesting when you read his books, like there's not like a big action scene to, you know what I mean? There's no like cold open, you know, but there kind of is. It's just not your normal kind of cold open thing to hook you in.
So I think it's safe to say that you've always liked spy novels then, since you're listing off all these spy books, right?
Yeah. I would say if you looked at my bookshelf through my whole life, it's there's everything, like science fiction. You know, I mean, when I was reading all the Ian Fleming books, I was reading like Conan the Barbarian paperbacks too, and like just all the. I wasn't a very discerning reader. I was just a reader of every pulp genre.
That's very interesting. So what would you say is the thing that made you choose John le Carré as the subject, considering how well read you are?
Well, I'm not sure how much I could talk about it, but I went back and reread everything because I started working with the estate on doing a graphic novel sort of set in the universe of John le Carré. They asked me if I would do it, and I said no. I was like, no. I was like, that sounds like either a trap or a disaster, or you know what I mean? Like, it's just not. But I did the same. Dark Horse asked me to write a Star Wars comic also, and I was like, and I said no to that. I was like, if I'm a fan of the thing, I like being a fan of the thing and just being able to have that relationship with it. But as soon as you start working with it, then there's always this danger of, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a bad time, or there's going to be terrible notes or something that sort of like poisons my experience with whatever that property is. So I did, I ended up having an idea for Star Wars and went back and did it, and it was fine. And then for this, they came to me, they had kind of an idea of like a framework of what they wanted. And I was like, oh, I like that. And I knew then going in that the family, everybody would be happy with generally what it was going to be. And then I just had to kind of write it, and it was hard. And this is why also I hesitated, because I just write like I write, but if you're doing a graphic novel, with his name on it or in his world, it has to, then you want it to kind of feel like it's his, and that's weird. That's weird. And so that's why I reread all the books. I was like, boy, how do you capture his voice? And then, I don't even know, his son is Nick Harkaway. Do you know this? Nick Harkaway is a science fiction author. I was a big fan of Nick Harkaway. I had read a bunch of his sci-fi books, and then I didn't realize he was his son. So they both had pen names,
Yeah.
And
makes sense.
The first email and call with him, I was like, it's his name on there. I was like, Nick. I was like, what? Why am I talking to Nick? I felt so dumb, I was realizing on the call, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is it's pretty cool.
That is. It's like 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, that's what I was going to say about it, because his son wrote a new John le Carré novel that came out this year, Carla's Choice, and I was like, that sounded like an idea that could be a disaster, or a trap.
Yes.
And I was so nervous for him, and then I read it because I was like, I have to read it, and I couldn't believe how good it was. Like the way he captured just the feel of it, the language, totally different than his own writing style, and I was like, it was so impressive. It made me think, it can be done. I don't know if I can do it, but it can be done, and but it was tricky too, because in comics, how do you translate a lot of what he's doing is so within the character and so like psychological, how do you do that in comics? And that was kind of a fun nut to crack.
Did you crack it?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yes, we will.
What did you learn anything new about le Carré having adapted it?
Yeah, I think, I think I appreciated more what my favorite things about his style and what his writing is how he can draw a character in like a few short sentences. He can, like, just with a few lines, you can sort of know a person. So these people will walk through the stories and sort of show up and disappear, but till they get them who they are, and not even the main characters. Here's the one that sticks in mind for me is he's describing this guy that works at the circus, and hopefully if you're listening to this, you kind of know some of the le Carré world, and the circus is like the big organization that runs everything. It's basically like MI6, but not MI6. But this character shows up, and he just works in the office, and then there's like a couple of lines where he's just like, he's the kind of guy, this is paraphrasing what it is. I should have written it down or pulled it up, but he's the kind of guy who on Monday through Wednesday, he'll talk about what he did last weekend. And then Wednesday through Friday, he talks about what he's going to do the next weekend. And that's the kind of worker he was. And I was like, just that little snapshot was like so smart and such a good observation and such a, like that's sort of a universal thing. It had nothing to do with the spies or the plot or any of that stuff. It was just like, oh, you've worked with somebody like that. You know, it just felt so real. So I think that's what I really like about the books is they're grounded and you can tell he's observing the world and real people.
Did you read all of his books or do you just?
No, I only read the Smiley books. You know, there's like the main, and I read I guess I started with the first one. I've read from his first book all the way through to the end of the Smiley books, and then I haven't read the newer ones.
Gotcha. So which ones? Okay, so I went through and I watched the trailers for all the movies that are out.
Yeah.
I do not have time to watch all the movies, but they go all the way back to the 1960s, and it is fascinating how trailers evolve. Because I watched them in chronological order. And I have to say, there is a through line with all of his stories, so that's pretty cool. But are they pretty much like on track with the novels, or are they different, or how are the adaptations in that regard, do you think?
Boy, that's good. I'll have to think. I watched The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, the original one, Richard Burton.
Yeah.
And I watched the one with Gary Oldman, right?
Yeah, Tinker Tailor.
So I think those are the only ones I've seen. And I tried desperately to find oh my gosh, all of the names just slip in my mind. Ben Kenobi.
Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness. Yeah, I tried to find
We're here for you.
The British TV adaptation, you know, and I want to watch it, but all I could find was on YouTube. It's like chopped up on YouTube over like 8 or 10 hours or something, and I was like, I don't want to watch it that way.
Yeah.
so I haven't seen that, but yeah, I haven't seen them all. So I think I would say no. I think the Gary Oldman one is closer to how they are, you know, and I think. This is what I like. I feel like, and I have no idea, I'm only speaking as like a fan I've read the books, is that when I read those books and George Smiley is like the main character. He's like the James Bond of the book, right? Like he's the main spy master. But I feel like Le Carré writing him was purposely, and this is probably real obvious, but he's purposely writing like the anti-James Bond. He's like, he's overweight. You know, he has these big, thick glasses. He's always got. He's not active at all. He barely does any physical anything. He goes for walks. You know, and I think in the first one he like shoots his gun once at the end. And I was like, oh, I think he was aware. He was conscious of James Bond in the zeitgeist, right? And he's like, I'm going to write. What's the opposite? How can I make this all the opposite? And he's not. He's married to a woman who's cheating on him all the time, but he's in love with her and he won't leave her. You know, it's like, it literally is like, you couldn't be more polar opposite. And I think I also like that about it. I like that he's sort of, whether it had to be intentional, but he's just sort of sticking it to this popular character, you know.
Yeah, I think it is intentional. I do. I think it's intentional for sure.
Yeah, right. I would think so too.
Yeah, I think I read that, that Smiley also doesn't like extravagant food. So you know how like James Bond likes his martini.
He knows the whiskey. Oh, this is before the rains, exactly. 1952.
Yeah. This guy does not care about food. He eats for sustenance. That is it. It's like he's very, you know, just a straightforward guy that just, you know, does his business.
Yeah, Fleming was so into like years of whiskey and, you know, distillation types.
Yep.
No, you're true. Yeah, that reminds me. Yeah, the food's so bad. There's a scene where they're describing making some coffee at the office, and it's like, I was like, I don't know what that is they made, but that's not coffee. I love coffee, and I was like, that was disgusting. Whatever they just drank.
Well, you had to really delve deep into that.
So is it accurate to say, therefore, that le Carré is more of a procedural spy author? It's really kind of way more about the actual procedure of spy work than Fleming or other spy authors?
I think so, yeah. It's not so much the dead drops in the codes and like that. I mean, that's in there, and it's definitely, when he's writing about it, it feels real because he did it and it was real, so everything in there feels real. But yeah, I think there's something else. To me, it's like I put him and Graham Greene sort of in the same bucket, they're in the bucket, but le Carré is definitely more about like, who's the mole, how are we going to find him, and then the relationships and how all that works, where Graham Greene's usually about some guy who's feeling sorry for himself and then miserable the whole book, and then something bad happens, which I like them both.
Yeah.
It sounds derogatory. It's not, but
sounds exciting.
No.
So many of his books are really, in their essence, about betrayal. And it's not like the betrayal is the big reveal. It's like the betrayal is off screen, right? It's like Smiley's wife is having an affair, and that is driving the vibe and the energy of the book. But it's not like in a Bond kind of action page turner of a novel where there's going to be a big juicy scene in the third act where you have all this resolution, right? It's so much of the mystery for you as a reader. Like, is this a reliable narrator or not? Is this real? And then it's all like the little small petty betrayals and the pettiness also of like the bureaucracy life. Also, Matt, the next time you come visit, I do have the Alex Guinness box set.
It's out of print, right? I couldn't find it.
In LA. Just come visit.
Yeah. All right. We'll have a marathon. I'll pop some popcorn.
Amazing.
I think it's a crime that they didn't have Alec Guinness do more le Carré stuff.
Yeah.
It's like we'd have it now. We'd have all this awesome Alec Guinness le Carré stuff, but they just had the short-sightedness. Oh, let's just do one. It's okay.
Yeah.
I also love that the idea of a spy, an actual spy, reacting to Ian Fleming's James Bond becoming this mega star, and then being so indignant about that he decides he's going to do the real thing.
And he's really good at it.
Right, right.
I mean, write what you know. Yeah. We always say that. So.
No, that's true. But I always do. I think there's like I don't know how to word this either, but I feel like I'm a competitive person, and I think that even the arts is like, I see it as competitive. I'm trying to beat like the good thing, right? It's
sure.
I spent 20 years trying to do something better than Watchmen, and then you realize, not going to do it, but I found another lane. Maybe that's okay. But I like seeing other creators sort of react to other things that are happening in the world, or other things that are happening in books or comics. It's like, I hate that. I'm going to do something that is better and completely opposite, and then super popular,
Yeah.
And,
that's what makes like great content. I mean, basically it's competitive.
That's why comics don't sell. We don't have enough personalities, just ego clashing, right? Not really.
I think we do. It's all behind the scenes.
It's all behind the scenes. It's all like, it's not like out there saying, I'm calling out, blah, blah, blah.
Like, you think you know this? I know this.
Gangsta comics.
Yeah, we do need more of that.
Right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Controversy going.
Yep.
No, that's funny. No, I've definitely written characters where it's a spiteful character but covered so, or camouflaged so well that no one will ever know, but I'm like, this is that. That's why.
That's why I throw a private joke against whoever.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's my therapy,
Yeah.
So, Matt, given how much you like the Smiley books, why did you stop? Why not branch out? Like, he's written so many books. You're not like tempted to dive into The Constant Gardener or something outside of the Smiley books?
Yeah, it's not true. I did. I read Little Drummer Girl. And I think I read Spy Came In From the Cold, and then I read Little Drummer Girl next, and I was like, didn't hit me. I wasn't loving it, So then it made me a little scared to go past that, And also, it's a weird thing. My mom was like, "Oh, have you watched the interviews with le Carré on?" And I was like, "No, I don't." Part of me, I feel like I want to know. Sometimes I just want to know the author of the work through the work. I don't want to know all the extra. I don't want to know I don't know. There's something weird about it. It makes me uncomfortable when I'm working with someone or with the thing. I don't want to know behind the scenes. I just want to know what's on the page, So I've avoided that even. Just I can't explain it.
Yeah, you can. That's so wise.
That is,
because let's face it, you peel those layers of the onion away, and we always find oh, really?
Yeah, I know, right? You don't really want to know. Don't ask me where my idea came from. You're going to be so disappointed about how dumb the writing prompt was.
I mean, I don't. It's probably not dumb. I'm sure you're just feeling that way. But
sometimes they're dumb. Yeah.
So then, do you think now, besides these graphic novels that you're writing about with his work, are any of your other books influenced with his stuff or no?
Yeah. What's funny is I did this book, Super Spy, back in the early 2000s, and it was, to me, it's the most John le Carré thing I've done, but I hadn't read John le Carré when I was doing it. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was, maybe I did. I might have read one. I think that's when I read Spy Came. I read one of them because I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing the same thing that had been done elsewhere. I read a bunch of Alan First books that were like World War II. They were like sort of dry, sort of spy books. I mean, in a good way, they're fine books, but I remember just sort of binging every kind of spy book. And I think that's where I first revisited John le Carré, and then I didn't really. I don't know that I was responding to it at all. I don't remember responding. I really was taking. I was trying to come up with an 8-page spy story every week for a year. That's kind of how I did that book. So I was really just grasping at everything and looking at headlines and trying to find story ideas as I went. And, but yeah, I think in hindsight, I'm like, it owes a debt to him because it's character driven stuff. I think I care more about the nuts and bolts, the hiding of secrets and the encoding of messages and everything. I love that part, where I don't le Carré isn't as, that's not as important to him, only because he's just telling you how it really went, and it's like, but what if I want to see somebody put a Morse code message on the clothesline with clothes, I like it to be a little sillier. There's a lot of jargon in there, and then even just the different branches of the circus, and he has fun little code names for all the different people that do things, like pavement artists are the guys that follow you on the street, and then gosh, what are the other ones? The farm is where they torture people and try to or I guess just interrogate people. I don't know if it's torture. It's
even the circus is jargon, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the circus is jargon, and and that was what was interesting to me. I had a conversation with Parkway, and he because part of it to me was the thing I did was set in modern day. I'm like, well, how do you do circus in modern day? There's MI6. They have the big glass building, and he told me, he gave me some good ideas for how to do it so it still feels like the circus, and then they still operate out of the old building, and he said what's funny about that big new glass building is what they realized when they built it with all the windows and everything, it's susceptible to like these lasers that can hear through glass.
Wow.
So they would have everybody. It's a big glass building with all this air and sun, but everybody has to meet in these. They had to like build enclosed rooms inside so people could go in there and have their meetings because you could so easily spy on the spy building.
Wow.
It made half of it like unusable. That's funny.
Is that real? Lasers that can hear?
Yeah, I guess you shoot it in there and it whatever can. I don't
Frequency.
know how. Yeah.
That's
amazing.
nuts. I'm sorry, that creeps me out.
That's my Google rabbit hole for later.
Yeah.
Lasers that hear.
Yeah. Please fact everything I say tonight. You got to fact check it.
We'll put it in the show notes. Don't worry.
Even if it's not real, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, do you think you've learned so much about being a spy that you would make a good spy?
People ask me that. I would be the worst spy. If you knew me in real life, you would know that I would be the worst spy. I am not observant. You know, I'm oblivious to everything around me. And I was trying to think of why am I so absent-minded? And I think it's just because I'm always thinking of story stuff. I'm literally daydreaming all the time. And the way my brain works, like if we're driving in the car and you're talking to me while I'm driving, and you're telling me something that happened to you, I'm picturing what happened to you, and then I'll run a red light, because I'm just picturing it so vividly that I'm not in the real world. This is something I've figured out over the last few years, So
Matt and I can never drive together.
No.
Oh my God! Don't drive. Just don't talk. Don't tell me anything, right? Oh, you do the same. Yeah,
same. I've ended up in different states.
That's so funny. And it is a thing too. My niece was telling me. She says when I say, if I tell you a guy walks across the street and then a car goes by and almost hits him. But he gets across the street. All right. Are you picturing it happening, or are you just hearing the words and understanding the words? I was like, well, I pictured like 3/4 of you looking down. I saw it all as you were telling me. And she's like, I don't do that. Some people don't.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Like she said she asked her sister, my other niece, she's like, when I say apple, do you picture an apple? And she says, no, I just hear the word apple and know what it means, but I don't picture the word. And I think our brains just work differently.
Yeah, it blows my mind. Because every time you said a word, I was like, the vision of it came into my head like apple. But I have heard that people don't think, there's some people that don't think visually or like in pictures.
Then there are people who cannot make pictures in their mind. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. They cannot do.
Yeah, David, you're awfully quiet.
Yeah, David.
Are you picturing an apple?
A series. I was actually picturing you talking to your niece with a picture of an apple over your head as a word balloon.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. So none of us here do that other thing, but it is a thing.
Yes, it is a thing.
And we all feel for them.
I think I'm inconsistent. I don't always do it. Like, do you always visualize? Like when someone's telling me a story, I think half the time I'm off daydreaming and like not like paying enough attention.
I'm glad you know that, David.
Yes, thanks for letting us
We're so glad you know.
Right?
Oh, we know.
That's why you got quiet.
That's right.
What's funny is I've had my wife tell me a story of something that happened, and then it'll come up again later, like years later, and then she's telling, or I'm telling it, and I'm telling it because I feel like I was there too, and then I wasn't. I realized, oh no, I wasn't. You told me that story. I felt like I was there because I imagined it, so it feels real to me. And it's what's funny is like that's kind of cool, but it hampers me in writing. And if you guys when you're writing, if you have this problem, but my first draft, not my first draft, the draft I turn in to an editor, if they haven't given me any kind of revision, it's so hard for me to to go back and fix something. I was like, oh, because I've already imagined it this way. So for me to do that, it's almost like I've got to take a piece of reality out of my brain and then like try to plug something new in, and then if I do that, especially in comics, it's serialized, so there'll be 1 issue, 2 issue, 3 issue. So something got changed in first issue, and then the second or third issue, something's referring back to something, but that was changed. I don't remember the change. I only remember the way I first pictured it, So I screw up a lot because it's like, oh no, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, because once I write it in there, that's how it is. You can make me change it on the paper, but not in my head.
You're not alone in that. I see that happen all the time. What's weird for me is that I can only see mistakes, which is bizarre. Like today I was writing a new Substack, and I was recalling working with this artist for the very first time. And now they've gone on to do huge things, right? And all I can remember is that he had a serious problem with tangents. And that's literally in my brain. I see the page that I'm looking at going, what is with all these tangents? It's like that was at least 20 years ago at this point. 20 years ago. And it's all I can remember. Why? I don't know.
Because you're well suited for editorial work.
No, that's good. Here's the thing. I'm scarred by tangents because when I was doing mind management, I was doing everything. So I was lettering it and everything too. But the deadlines to do a monthly book and do it all was so tight that it was just like, I'm just out the door. And then every issue would come back. My editor, he'd circle every other page a word balloon that had a tangent. It was like touching a corner, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to get this done. And I was like, I don't have time to like click the balloons over a little bit. I was like, I don't have time for this. But it gave me such PTSD for tangents that now I'm hyper aware of tangents. So it's good. That's a good thing.
Yes.
It is one of those things. I mean, I feel like we're dealing with that right now too, like with the other artists. So yeah.
It's an eternal struggle.
Eternal struggle.
Yeah.
It is. Yep.
No, it's hard. I will say it's hard to juggle. In their defense, you're focused on one thing, right? And then you almost have to shift gear and then look at it again. Look for that,
Hey, David.
Yes, Chris.
It's time for something.
What is it time for?
A word from our sponsor.
Mary Tyler Moore Hawk action figures.
Eisner Award-nominated cartoonist Dave Baker's mind-bending graphic novel Mary Tyler Moore Hawk is equal parts sweeping action-adventure graphic novel and dystopian detective story that weaves back and forth between worlds, touching on everything from corporate personhood to mutant sharkmen to the meaning of fandom and reality itself. It's a show you don't remember and a book you won't forget. Mary Tyler Moore Hawk's retro action figures are available at the finest toy stores everywhere.
Mary Tyler Moore Hawk, the action figure.
I'm gonna get that! Welcome back to the Superfan Podcast.
With today's guest, Matt Kindt. When you're going through these books, and you've reread several of them, all of them?
Yeah, I read them all.
So we all know we love our authors, our favorite authors, but there are those things they don't do well. Is there anything like that? Like metaphorically, a tangent that le Carré, you get to that point in the book and you're, oh, here he is doing that thing.
I would say, no, here's what's interesting. His very first book, and the title's escaping me, but I read that one because I thought, I'll just start at the beginning and read them all. When I was rereading them all, I was like, I'll read the first one, which I hadn't read. And I read it, and I was like, it was short, but it was like a murder mystery. It had Smiley in it, but he was like sort of a side character, and he came in, and then it was like a locked room murder mystery. It almost felt like an Agatha Christie novel.
Interesting.
And I was like, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I want. I didn't understand, and then that was interesting to me because out of context, I wasn't sure. It was like, was that guidance from an editor? Did he think this is what the kind of books he should be writing or what the market required or what he, because like then they weren't like that after, so I wonder if that was just like him getting started.
Yeah.
And figuring out finding his feet, you know. And so I would say, like, yeah, I don't. It's funny, boy. I'm so critical of everything. That's such a funny question. I have no critique of any of the Smiley books.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Great.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what was
really
weird?
great.
When I was watching all those trailers, there was one that stuck out, and it was the Pierce Brosnan, Jamie Lee Curtis one, The Tailor of Panama. And it was listed as a black comedy. And it's so far off of like all of his other stuff. And so I was like, what on earth? And as I was watching the trailer, I realized, oh, it's because of Pierce Brosnan and Jamie Lee Curtis, because their very nature of acting is kind of black comedy, you know, like their little quips and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I had to wonder, I was like, I wonder if there's like an adaptation kind of a thing where they adapt it to who they could cast, you know, because it just seemed so far off of le Carré's other stuff. It was very unusual. So that was the one thing I caught that I was like, that's weird, you know.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw that when it came out, I guess, in the theater, and I don't think I realized I didn't know it was an adaptation or anything back then. It was, I don't remember very well, but it was popular. I think it did well.
Yeah, it did. It was, who was it that played the actual Taylor?
Jeffrey Rush.
Thank you, Jeffrey Rush.
He's so great.
Yeah.
My favorite Jeffrey Rush performance is, real quick, is in Elizabeth when he plays the enforcer. He plays kind of a spy. I'm sorry, not kind of a. He is an Elizabethan spy. He's defending Kate Blanchett's Elizabeth like a spy, and he is just so good in that movie. It's my favorite performance.
I forgot he was in that. That's good. Yeah.
He's a killer in it.
You have to check these out.
So Matt, before we do these interviews, we do quite a bit of research, and then as I'm sitting here, I'm seeing like I don't want to say the hole in the research, but just like the jump in logic that multiple sources didn't address that you kind of spoke to. And I'm finding this really interesting. So you talked about his novel Call for the Dead, which is 1961. Then the next Smiley book comes out the following year, A Murder of Quality. And then the book that like really breaks through, which is The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, 1963. Yeah. So you're thinking, okay, great. He's doing like one a year. That's the one that he becomes uncomfortable with, like how famous he gets and just the level of dialogue around it. He takes 2 years before coming back for the fourth book. That's 1965. And there's a huge jump all the way to 1974 before the next George Smiley book comes out. But just knowing like the rhythm of publishing, it does make you wonder, like, is he working with that editor who gives him notes like, okay, this first one shows promise, but you're not quite there yet, right? And then he's just like working towards getting that distinctive style down. And then to take like 9 years off from your signature character is kind of amazing, you know?
Yeah, can you imagine that happening now? It's like you're losing all your momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the editor with that?
You've been off socials for 10 years. How can we possibly publish it?
I mean, in my brain, he's off doing spy stuff.
That would be the great marketing move.
Day job.
What was he doing?
He's just writing on the side because he hated Ian Fleming, So.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right.
He's wearing an eye patch when he comes back.
You mentioned both your mom and your wife earlier tonight. Are either of them also into spy fiction? Your mom is, right? Just
not really. Here's what my earliest movie memories are seeing Star Wars in '76, and then seeing Moonraker at the drive-in theater.
Moonraker.
My parents loved James Bond, so they would take us to every time a new James Bond movie came out, we went as a family because they loved it, And so it wasn't like when you're a kid, you don't get to choose what you're drugged to the theater to see, you have to you go along. And so I think they always loved the Bond movies, but my mom was a big Agatha Christie fan. She never really read spy stuff. And my dad, he didn't really either. He didn't read any of that either. I other than like the James Bond movies, Yeah, not really. My dad was a preacher, so he was reading the Bible all the time. And I'm reading sci-fi, and I'm like hoping they don't realize what's in some of these books.
I think Agatha Christie's like spy adjacent, though. I think mysteries are very close to each other, you know. So
yeah, spies. It is. It's funny because it's all in superheroes as well. Like to me, I was like, why do I like spies? One of the reasons was I grew up reading superhero comics, and then superhero comics, you have a secret identity, right? So that's like the main thing you're trying to hide while you do your mission. You know, it's like, oh, that's what spies are, just like the real world version of that, where you have your other self, you know, and you're trying to do something good, you know, or do whatever your mission is, good or bad. And so I feel like that's the intriguing part.
Yeah, for sure. I never made that connection before.
Really?
No, spies and superheroes.
It took me. Yeah, it was a long time. What's funny is like, I don't know about you guys. When I do a book, I don't really know what it's about till after it's done, and then people start talking about it or ask me questions, and then I have these slow revelations of like, oh yeah, that's what it's about. You know.
Have you ever? I know you said previously that you don't really go into him, the author, but have you ever heard whether or not he's a pantser or an outliner? Is he a kind of write as you go kind of guy, or is he a more of an outliney person? And where do you fall in that debate?
Yeah, I don't know what his process is. I do love process. Eventually I will dig into it once I get some distance from it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a firm believer in like an outline, definitely like a full outline of the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I start my process is I'll just write like a document that's me telling you what happens. You know, it's almost like I don't know if you know writers who never finish anything, but they can tell you the whole story. You know, and they don't finish it because they keep telling the whole story, so they feel like they're, you know what I mean, the motivation to get it done isn't there. So I never tell people what my story is, but I do type up a thing that tells the whole story. And then that's the outline. Then I just go through, you can almost write without fear then, because it's like, oh, I know it. I have an ending, you know, I have good bits to get to, and then you're just trying to figure out how to make it interesting all along the way. But that's what I think. If you have an outline, then you kind of wing it all the way through, you know, you're going in a general direction, but it gives you room to improvise as you go, I think.
I'm a fan of a solid outline.
Yeah.
Says the answer.
Yeah, same. I was taking these music lessons. I was learning how to play ukulele. So one of the lessons, he was like, I'm going to show you how to jam now. You know, I was like, oh, okay. He's like, well, if you know this scale, right? So you just keep this rhythm, and then you play any of the notes in the scale in any order, and then you can mix up and then I'll play the main part, and then you can jam on your ukulele. This is what a nerdy. You can't jam on a ukulele, but anyway. The point of the story is I was like, oh, it took all the magic out of any kind of like guitar solo or any kind of, I was like, oh, it's just these, I could literally do anything. It was just making it up. And it was so fun. It's fun to play it, you know, because it sounds great. You can't screw it up. And then you don't have to think about it at all. And so I think a good outline does that, where you have your scale, right? As long as you play your notes to go on that scale, you can't screw it up as long as you get to the right notes.
That's a really good comparison. Although I would love to see you jam on the ukulele.
Next time.
Definitely. Man, you should, next con you go to, sell tickets to the ukulele show. Because we will be the first 3 people there.
Absolutely.
That is so great. Hey, I've never read, so every guest we have on the Superfan podcast, at least one of us doesn't really know what the guest is going to talk about. Like David had no idea about Billy Joel when we had Mark Guggenheim and so on and so forth. So I'm the one this week. This has been the first time I'm like, okay, I don't know. I know spy stuff. My brother's a big Ian Fleming fan. I've watched in fact, during COVID, I rewatched all the James Bond movies.
Yeah.
And saw some of them for the first time, which was amazing. And but so for someone like me who's never read, would you recommend going in order? Just read the first book, this first Smiley book, or is there another way you'd recommend to go as a first book?
Yeah, no, I would start with Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Start there and then keep going. You know, you go to the end. There's like 5-6 more books. I would start there and go through the rest. If you're a completist, go back and read those first couple. But I like, it was interesting to me to see that progression, David, like you were talking about, where they started out as kind of murder mysteries and sort of morphed into like his final form, you know, his like mature writer form. But yeah, that's what I would start there, you know, and then I still have the later books to get to, and I kind of like having those. I'm a huge Philip K. Dick fan, and over the years I've been like since high school they were harder to find back then because he wasn't, you know what I mean, he sort of had a resurgence in the whatever 2000s, but it was hard to find his paperbacks back then, and then so I would read them as I got them, and then it got to the point where I have them all, but I don't want to read them all. I want to save a couple, you know, and then now I've read them all. but it was nice kind of knowing, I got a couple more to read. And so I kind of feel that way with him, you know, him and Graham Greene's the same. I've kind of read a ton of their stuff, and so I'm just saving them. I'll get to them eventually.
But, you know, Matt, you brought up a really interesting point before in terms of often wanting to have a separation between like an artist and their work. And I normally like that too. I often, you know, working in publishing before working in comics, there were certain writers that I was a huge fan of that I did not want to be the publicist for, right? Just because sometimes it's just better not to know. In the instance of John le Carré, the more I researched, the more fascinated I was. And what was interesting was, like, yes, he may or may not have been a spy. You can't really tell when he's sitting there and being interviewed about how much he's putting it on, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he was a spy, but was he really just filing paperwork, or how involved was he? And he's so removed, and he's such a great liar. And he talks about being a great liar, making a great spy and a great writer. And you're sitting there wondering how much of this is true. And also your father was a con man. So it's in the family, right?
Right. It's a short step from con man to spy. I'm not even sure that is a step.
Right? Is it a step? I mean, it's just who you're working for at that point.
And then to writer. That's even fiction writing?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think what we determined tonight is Matt Kindt is a spy.
Right. Because, he's like, I'd be the world's worst spy, which is exactly what the world's best spy would say.
Right?
I know. We're humbling, head in the clouds.
Me, I can't even drive. I'm
really harmless.
I'm a terrible spy. Terrible.
Yeah, no. I guess those are the ones you have to watch out for. No, that's interesting. Yeah, because they say that the best liars are writers or whatever. What's the phrase?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But I'm a terrible liar. But I think. Also, you can just be honest in your writing. To me, that's funnier to just write things that are 100% true that seem ridiculous, you know, that aren't lies at all.
I have to agree with that. That's the scary part.
Fact being stranger than fiction and all that.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
speaking of fact and fiction, Matt, again, as the person who doesn't know, a lot of spy authors love to put historical context in their cases. Does he do that, or are they free of any kind of historical context?
Yeah, he does. It's Cold War era.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's what the Spy Who Came In From the Cold, especially literally it ends at the Berlin Wall, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to get over. I won't spoil it, but it doesn't end well. but yeah, it's he's really taking the conflict of the time and sort of like weaving a tale around it, you know, and it was mostly all Cold War stuff.
Okay, cool.
And that was what was interesting to me, is like trying to tell a modern story then in his world. It was like, well, who's their enemy? Like, what's the enemy? That was like my main question. I was like, Rust is easy, Cold War era, that's super easy. Now it's like, who do you pick?
Seriously.
So that was a little more interesting to sort of figure out what that would be. Like, what, you have to sort of put yourself in his place. Who would he be writing about? Who's England's, who do they see as an enemy? And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah,
definitely.
We have too much to pick from now.
Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, just close your eyes and throw a rock.
Yes, exactly.
Well, is that it? Do you think we're
what do you say there, Mr. Hyde?
Yeah.
I think we're pretty good, Matt. Is there anything that you feel like you wish people knew about the Smiley books or about John le Carré?
It's interesting because I'm so critical of like modern fiction. There's hardly anything new that I read that's any good. I kind of always disappointed. So for me, it's a testament. These are still good. They were popular at the time. They still hold up better than almost anything being published now. Still, so I think they're literary in like a fun way, not in a read this because it's good for you way. But yeah, I don't know. They're great. Read them.
Now that I know they're Cold War books, I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, it's neat. What's funny is like they're so timeless. It doesn't even matter. Like
that's good. That's good to hear too.
Yeah, and it is. It's they're character driven. And there's the good guy, bad guy. There's the gray area. Whatever. Nobody's fully good.
Right.
People have well-intentioned, but what was it? I saw graffiti I saw graffiti a couple of weeks ago. Somebody had written intention is, and then equal with a sign through it, not equal to result or something. It was like
that's some deep graffiti in Missouri.
Yeah, right.
Missouri's got the killer graffiti. It's like philosophers with spray paint.
Yeah, no, it was a good one. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
I'll say before we sign off, to me, one of the things that is so exciting about reading those books and then, doing a modicum of research afterwards is appreciating like how much of the jargon he did create or would distance himself from whether he created or not. So there's some level of discussion online. Was he the first person to use the word mole? Right. And so like part of how we think of spy fiction, but there's a bunch of other phrases: to come in from the cold, to sweat a suspect, the honey trap. These are all like so iconic, and they're woven into the book in a way that feels effortless. And it's one more thing to decode. And I think, that's one reason why when you said this is the person you wanted to talk about, it made sense to me. Because as I'm reading your stories, you're reading them on so many levels, right? You're reading the action on the page, but then you're also sort of decoding so much of what's happening in the back. And to me, that feels not like you're trying to get the vibes of a John le Carré book, but it feels of a like-minded soul,
Yeah,
no, you're right. And to me, it really is the building blocks of like all spy fiction that's come after, and that reminded me too of the one last thing. I was talking to his son, and he was telling me a true story of something his dad did. They were placing a bug and drilling a hole through a wall, and they ruined like this antique textile on the other side, so they had to repair. It was this whole thing. I won't go into the whole story, but he was telling me the story of the real thing his dad did, where they had to cover up this hole overnight before the guy got there to see the hole in the wall where they put the bug. And I was like, well, that's a story it's in the last Smiley book. I can't remember to tell that one either, but it's a story. It happens in that book. And I was like, well, that was in the book, but that was a real story. I was like, okay, so there's so much reality in there that you'd assume is fiction, and it's not.
Wow.
Right, what you know.
Yeah.
That's what's great. If you like spy stuff, what's better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want the real stuff.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you guys having me.
That was great.
Yeah.
I wore this t-shirt, but you couldn't see it.
Oh, the last bookstore. Yay. That's awesome.
Yeah, I miss LA. I guess I might be there July, right before San Diego. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me know. Every episode of the Superfan Podcast is accompanied by a cocktail, a mocktail, and a dessert recipe inspired by the guests in conversation. The recipes, as always, will be in the Superfan Signal Substack, so head on over there. So the cocktail tonight is the appropriately named John le Carré. That has rye, rum, sweet vermouth, dram, which is an underappreciated and very amazing liqueur, and bitters. To get the exact recipe, again, head on over to the Superfan Signal Substack. But, being John le Carré is a really prolific writer, so I couldn't stop with just one drink. In fact, I have two cocktails and a mocktail. So the second cocktail is the White Lady, and this is actually the cocktail in one of his more obscure novels, The Looking Glass War, in which the protagonist at one point in the book says that the only drink that he drinks is the White Lady. And why not? The White Lady has gin, dry carousel, and lemon juice. Simple, elegant, tasty. I'm ready. And for the mocktails, this one is a little out there. It is spy influenced because it is inspired by the really amazing show, which is Spy Family, which is a great manga and a great anime. And this is a mocktail inspired by the daughter on the show. So it's Anya's Strawberries and Cream Green Tea. So for this, you want some strongly brewed green tea, cooled, strawberry lemon syrup, freeze-dried strawberries, ice, cream cheese foam, cream cheese, heavy cream, milk, sugar, and just a pinch of salt. Again, for the whole recipe, where are you going to head? Over to the Substack. Kris Simon, do you have a dessert that pairs with these cocktails and a mocktail?
Well, I sure do. So during my research of John le Carré, I discovered that his spy, Smiley, does not like to eat desserts. He's a very, a plain man who is very straightforward and only eats for sustenance, not for pleasure or for taste. So I had a very hard time coming up with this, but during my research, I happened to stumble upon John le Carré's favorite dessert himself, which is a rhubarb crumble, and it has a custard. He likes a heavy custard next to it. So the rhubarb crumble recipe, obviously, if you can find rhubarb, but the crumble topping is just unsalted butter, packed brown sugar, rolled oats, sprinkled on top, and next to it, just a big old dollop of this custard, which is really easy to make. All it takes is some attention with whole milk, cream, egg yolks, sugar, and vanilla extract. Just whip that up, get it just right, plop it there, and eat it up. It's fantastic.
The Superfan Podcast is a production of Superfan Media. This episode was edited by Bryant Dillon, with production help by Fanbase Press, who is the title sponsor of Season 1. The Superfan Podcast logo was designed by Criswell Lappin, whose design work can be seen at criswelllappin.com. 3 L's, 2 P's. criswelllappin.com. The theme song was written by a friend of the podcast, Dan Schulman, and performed by Low in the Shag. And now, a word about our sponsors.
Fanbase Press believes that stories matter. Acknowledging the importance of stories and the impact of storytelling is at the core of the organization. Universal communication through stories allows us to examine the essentials of human existence, to understand ourselves better, and to grow and heal. to pass on important values, knowledge, and lessons to the next generation, and to connect with one another through empathy and compassion.